that there will be absolutely no current when your channel is formed. But when your VGS is very close to VT, some weak inversion layer will be there, where it is gradually forming very small amount of current. And even for VGS minus VT, you will find a very finite conduction of ID also. That is in the ranges very close to your VG value. So you will see that in your ID VDS curve when you draw it. It's not that you will not have any conduction, but you will actually have still some amount of conduction present. So around this value, we saw this graph, right? So around this range, where your VGS is still not less than VT, there will be some amount of current flow even here. It is not that the current will not flow anywhere, but only thing is it is dependent upon how much VGS, what is the VGS value that is present, and for what VDS inputs you are going to see. So some amount of current will be there when you check Arrow VGS. And another graph you have to see is, when you do this here, your VT is still present over here. This particular range, your VT is here. But if you see, draw your attention to this particular portion, you will see then there is some finite amount of current no matter what. If you zoom in to this portion also, some amount of current is always there. It is not a straight line which says, okay, I'm getting, there's absolutely nothing there. So this small amount of current conduction is called subthreshold conduction. And when you get for VDS greater than roughly 200 millivolt, you get a unique equation which is called VTM, or your inversion factor, which is given by KT by Q. And for people who are familiar with noise, KT by Q is the amount of actual noise present in your system. And the non-ideality factor present, zeta, will have a direct correlation with the amount of noise present in your system. And this affects, essentially reduces the VGS value effectively to understand how much of ID current can come in with respect to the ideal drain current source without any of these effects. So when I naught is the current when there is no subthreshold conduction or in ideal condition. But when you get into the picture, that VGS minus VTH, how it comes, you will see that. Now, why is this particular factor VDS greater than roughly 200 millivolt? I have to, there are two ways of understanding. When you have in your PMOS device, when your VDS is given here, so typically when your VDS is greater than 200 millivolt, you're around or greater than you're close to saturation region, and you're sitting in this area. And this is going to be your VT. Let this be your VT point. And if your VDS is sitting around this area, you will find that there is some amount of noise also going to come. Additionally, you will see what we saw yesterday, that you will see also the channel length modulation also will get into effect. And this channel length modulation will also occur because there might be many noise particles also getting affected between the drain to source. So suppose this is your source and this is your drain. You will see that even in the small region of operation, you will have some channel length modulation will start into play, and this channel length modulation will give rise to the inherent noise in the system. So this inherent noise is given by KT by Q, where K is your Boltzmann constant, T is your temperature, and Q is the charge present. So take into consideration as what is the amount of charge present in the channel and the temperature, you will have a noise equivalent value there. So this noise equivalent value will affect the VGS voltage that is present, so what is the total effective voltage present and what. You can treat it as something like an SNR. So when you have a signal and you will have a noise also present. So in the presence of the noise, the signal, effective signal value will reduce. So this is the effective current reduction due to the subthreshold conduction or due to the noise. It's an analogy. Okay. So when VGS is brought down to 0, there will still be some drain current in the channel. That is due to this noisy currents or the leakage current. This is clearly an unwanted situation, and this will cause large power consumption in large circuits. For example, if you are using just one device, it is fine. But if you are using a million devices like this, and each of this million device drains a picoampere of current also, for example. So how much is a picoampere into a million? So minus 12 to another minus, if you add another 6. So you are looking at 1 microampere of additional current. So 1 microampere of additional current will also cause significant drop in large microprocessor chips also, where you are looking at billion transistors right now. When you occur at billion transistors, this number becomes a milliampere. So milliampere of leakage current can affect the performance pretty badly. So this is just giving you numbers to put the effect of what is the numbers we can see. So this is one non-ideality factor that has come, but it doesn't affect a lot, but it is used in very subthreshold design circuits that you would use. Not very problem causing, but it will this will have a significant effect when you go into lower technology nodes, when the channel length is very small, oxide is very thin, and the amount of noise that can inherently come be larger. So this plays a large effect when you design circuits at lower technology nodes, say less than 45 nanometer or others. So what are the other voltage limitations present in the circuit? So the various breakdowns can occur if the terminal voltages exceed certain limits. At very high VGS, the gate oxide breaks down irreversibly. So let us give an example. How does VGS or what gate oxide is present at VGS? It is the oxide which is present between these two terminals. So if you have there's an oxide present here, SiO2 or any other oxide, and then you will have your high K dielectric or your terminal to be present here. So this is the interface that is being referred to. So if you see, this is one terminal, this is the other terminal, and this is the oxide. So you will actually have a metal, oxide, metal capacitor will be present, or this is metal silicon capacitor. So it is a MOS cap, semiconductor PM. So you'll have a MOS cap present over here. So if you people who have experimented practically and have the experience of blowing up a capacitor, you will find that beyond a certain voltage applied across the terminals of the capacitor blows off. The reason this capacitor blows off is there are two reasons. One, if there is an electrolyte present within the dielectric media, or if there is air present in the dielectric media, the potential between which the air can sustain the electric field will exceed and it will explode. This value can be enhanced further if you add any dielectric, and if you increase the temperature further or increase the voltage applied to the capacitors further, the device will further explode. There is a reason, that is why they use electrolytic capacitors in high voltage devices, and you will use air gap capacitors in low voltage devices. So these two will have different voltages of operation and how much of voltage that they can sustain. Whereas in their device, the amount of capacitance that the system can handle is typically with regards to 10% more than the maximum voltage supply that your system can handle. That is why the foundry says the performance of the system is guaranteed up to about 10% of the maximum voltage supply. Anything more than that, the device will break down irreversibly and you cannot make use of it. So this is some of the voltage limitations which is there, and you have to ensure that you do not cross the voltage limitations of the system. Further, in short channel devices, like in the newer technologies, an excessively large VDS can widen the depletion region around the drain so much so that it touches that around the source and creating a very large drain current itself, which causes a punch through effect. Now this is predominantly permanently going to be observed when you work with systems less than 45 nanometer. For example, if you have in some cases your example working on say 16 nanometer device, so the amount of current that amount of charge that can it handle is going to be very small for it to open up. For the amount of the amount of voltage or the drain source voltage that you can apply is very small, and you can create a large channel to create there, which allows a large amount of current to flow. No, but what happens when you apply a large VDS supply? For example, the entire supply voltage appears across the device itself. The device will break down. So this is one of the reasons why the technology, as you go below, the technology in the voltage scaling also went down, say from 1.8 to 1.2 to 1 to 0.9 to 0.6. Now if you go in lower devices, this is the safe operating region of the maximum power supply that you can add. So if you can say, okay, if I take a 28 nanometer design with a maximum voltage supply of 0.9 and I apply 1.2 volt device, the device will work for a few seconds or might be a few minutes also. But beyond that, due to sustained high potential, the device will break down. The way it breaks down is large amount of current will break through the channel. Okay, the depletion layer will be gone, the inversion layer will be punched through, and it will go through from drain to source. So once that punch through happens, a new channel cannot be formed further because the channel itself is lost. There is no other depletion region formation space available. So this is one thing which is called punch through, and this has got serious implications in many cases. So if you can see, can channel length modulation affect PMOS performance? I just gave you the answer. There is going to be channel length modulation.